This is TWiT.
Tech Break is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. From CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft to security and cloud fundamentals, your team can master it all with IT Pro from ACI Learning. TWiT listeners can receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Based on your team's size, you'll receive a properly quoted discount tailored to your needs. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit today. You have reviews. Your embargoes have been lifted off your broad shoulders.
Am free of embargoes. I did not have anything when we talked last week, by the way, because it was still in the check was in the mail, but it all arrived. So yeah, I got a green iMac behind me. I got a space black, actually dark gray MacBook Pro with me. You know, I got
that isn't black. You're right.
Toys.
Yeah.
It's dark. I mean, it's darker than space gray. It's
Christina
just,
Warren said she loved
black.
the keyboard of it. Is it a nice, like how it looked?
I mean, I don't know. It's all it does because the keyboard's got the black around it, so you can even more clearly see how it's not black.
Yeah. But
how much blacker could it be? And the answer is the keyboard not more black.
Yeah.
The rest of the computer more black, much more black. Yeah.
Well, we gotta get Spinal Tap on this one, and maybe they can help us.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with being sexy.
So you have two things. You have an iMac and a 16-inch MacBook Pro.
And a 16-inch Max MacBook Pro.
Just on the iMac note, I saw that Apple made a statement to
Indeed, they
Verge.
did. They made a statement to everybody. I got the same statement. The Verge. Some of us just mentioned it in our iMac reviews. Others of us wrote a whole story about it because I guess some of us want clicks more than others of us do in our business model, and that's fine. But yes, Apple provided a statement to multiple outlets saying, just so we're clear, because I thought it was crystal clear. We talked about it last week. They had a whole talking point that was, hey, everybody, we think this iMac screen is so great. It's great for 21.5 and 27-inch iMac users on Intel to come to this one because it's perfect. That's Apple saying this is the one. And that was apparently not clear enough. So now they have made a statement, which is, I believe, technically, we have no plans to make a 27-inch iMac, which is funny because they could get plans later and they could get plans for a larger iMac than 27 at any time and even have them now. But that's not what they're doing. It's a marketing statement. What they're really, let me translate it for you. What they're saying is, hey, 27-inch iMac owners on Intel who are waiting, thinking that there's going to be an iMac just around the corner of the same size, stop waiting and buy something. That's what they're saying.
How cynical are they? Do you think they actually have a 30-inch in the works and they're really being somewhat coy?
What I've heard through the grapevine is that in the M1 iMac process, they tried to pencil out the cost of a larger iMac and they felt it didn't make sense. They felt that the cost and the time to do it, the cost of the panel, what they'd have to sell it for, they didn't think it was worth it. And they legitimately thought 24 fills a lot of use cases. And on top of that, remember, they put the studio display into design and production. And now we have a 27-inch panel in a studio display that will go with any of their systems. And I think I think they're not lying when they say, look, we have options for you. If you want a 27-inch screen, you just buy one of these displays and then attach it to anything you want, a laptop, a Mac Mini, whatever.
A lot more sense because you keep the screen and you upgrade the computer and that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's actually a lot less wasteful.
Yeah.
And I that's one of the things that, Apple still doesn't, they got rid of target display mode. And it still bugs me that they are committed to the environment, but they make these iMacs that once they are outmoded as computers can't be really retasked as displays. It's frustrating. I would like them to bring that back. But I will say the footnote to what you were asking, Mark Gurman did say that they keep throwing around the idea of a big iMac. So it sounds like it's out there, but he said even if they decide to do it, and it sounds like it's way out there, we're talking like 25, 26. So I think the point of Apple's statement remains, which is if you're like hanging on because you don't want to buy, you just know they're going to do a 27-inch model next month or early next year or something like that. They're not. They're absolutely not going to do that. There's no suggestion anywhere in Apple statements or in the reporting from people like Mark Gurman that there's going to be a bigger iMac anytime until like maybe 25 or 26. And in the meantime, if you want a bigger screen, studio display or some third-party display and a different Apple Silicon computer. You got the Mini, you got the Studio, you got laptops that work great. There's plenty of other options out there other than an all-in-one. So they also, I don't know if you noticed the URL change. This is a thing that some of us nerds look at. Andy probably noticed this. It used to be apple.com/iMac-24, and now it's just apple.com/iMac. Like,
oh, wow.
There's no 24. It's the iMac.
It's the way it is.
That's
and I'm sure that they
iMac.
have a lot of data about who's buying what. Like, you know, like I think it's based on, you know, and I don't, I mean, I have a 27-inch, or I have one that's been sitting around. But I think that the vast majority of people who want one, I think 24 is going to make a lot of sense. And I think that it is, you know, I think that they're kind of like, hey, we got monitors for that, like Mac Minis and monitors and other things and all kinds of things that you can do with that. I think it totally makes sense.
They also make, let's be fair, a 27-inch studio display.
Yeah, exactly. You get a Mac Mini and a 27-inch studio Mac Mini and a 20, and you're going to end up
same
with
panel as that old iMac. Exactly the same panel.
And I'm sure they don't want to be stuffing M3 processors and devices that they think that they could sell in other boxes anyway. So yeah, I think this is a long time coming.
So Lisa really wanted to upgrade her 5K iMac. What she really wanted was a camera in the display, because we said, well, okay, we'll get you a studio, and then you have one big 49-inch display. We'll get you a second one. She said, no, I want an iMac. So we got her the M1 like several months ago. And she's happy. Yeah. She's happy. I still have problems with the studio display because I feel like it's, I don't know. It does have a camera, doesn't it? Or no?
It does.
Yeah.
It's that center stage camera. So
it's
people are
just
complaining about it, but it's
just like
perfectly
an
functional.
iMac, really, with decoupled CPU. So I presume you reviewed the M1 iMac.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Yep. I think the real question is, compare the two.
They are exactly the same. They are exactly the same in every way, in the prices, in the features. They didn't change a thing. In fact, my biggest complaint about the M3 iMac is that it has all the same failings as the M1 iMac. And don't get me wrong, it's great. Like, it is such a great computer. It makes me wish I had a place for it in my life. But the fact is, the iMac is a niche computer now. It's not. There was a period there where the iMac was the best choice for anyone who wanted a Mac desktop. Yeah. And that's not the case anymore. When you say Apple, Alex said that like Apple knows the numbers. It's like, this is totally true. I've heard from people at Apple, like they know where it gets used. It's a niche computer. It goes in offices. It goes in some schools.
It
goes on front
offices.
Desks.
Yeah.
It's front desks. It's at reception in hotels. And like, it's gotta, they still sell it because it still sells and they make a lot of money on it, but it's not a mainstream computer like maybe it was 5 or 10 years ago. And so, what they didn't do is anything to change it. And like, it's still got the 1080 webcam. I wish it had a 4K webcam, or they did something better with center stage, honestly, because the iMac deserves a center stage camera and not the 1080 webcam that's in laptops. And, like I said, doesn't do target display. I feel like they're really missing something there. And you can't buy it, even though the studio display you can buy with an adjustable height stand. It's overpriced, but you can get it. You cannot buy an adjustable height stand for the iMac, and I think the actual default stand is too low, which means you're going to end up putting it on a box or a dictionary or something like that, which kind of takes away from the whole vibe of having an orange iMac.
There's actually a thriving business of little stands that they make just for the iMac on Amazon.
I have one for my studio display too. It's true. It's just silly that, like, I realize it would be overpriced, but like they designed that adjustable stand for the studio display. I don't know why, other than that it isn't color matched to the different models. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't do a version of that and offer it for the iMac as a $200 upsell because that would be nice. But they changed nothing. All the SKUs are basically the same. There's a low-end one that has the power brick that doesn't have the Ethernet port in it, but you can buy and that one doesn't have a Touch ID keyboard. It's all the same details. I was looking back to my story from 2.5 years ago, and like, it's literally the same computer, except it has an M3 in it instead of an M1 now. That's and upgraded Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but like otherwise it's exactly the same as it was for the same price.
And the reality is, I still think that the Mac Mini is a better value. Like, if you're doing stuff at home and you're not spending a lot of money, the Mac Mini is just an incredible machine for the price. Especially, I mean, it was good. It was like good as glue when it was Intel. When the M series came out, even though this wasn't updated to M3 yet, the Mac Minis are just so. I mean, I have a stack of them here, and they're all tied to different things. And the thing is that then I use any monitor I want. If I don't want to spend as much money on the monitor because I'm only using Excel or I'm not doing something with incredible color, like I can just spend a lot less. And for $800, I can have a Mac Mini and a very good 24-inch monitor, or or 27-inch monitor, or whatever size I want. I can put it on an arm and have the monitor somewhere different than the computer is. All those things happen with the Mac Mini, and I think that for the average person, we still got, for my parents-in-law, we still got them an iMac because they know it. It's simple. You turn it on and it plugs in and it works great for them. So there is a place for the iMac, but I think that the Mac Mini at this point is a better value.
Yeah, I mean, it is more expensive to buy an external monitor and an external desktop computer. Although a lot of people have laptops, you can plug those in. I don't know
with the Mac Mini. I mean, if you get the base Mac Mini and you're doing like Excel and email and even I mean, I tested Resolve on it just to see what would happen. It was fine. Like it was a little slow.
but it's still more expensive than buying an iMac to buy a studio display and a Mac Mini.
Oh, studio display. But I'm just saying.
Or if you have a random display, sure.
I just have all these Dell monitors. I don't.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And regardless, I just want to make this point that regardless, if you 3 years from now buy a new computer, you've now saved money because you didn't have to buy a new display. You just bought the new computer, and you will. And at that point, because displays last for so long,
they don't get changed as fast as CPUs do.
Well, and
not close.
Yeah. And again, we can have all these really, really high end monitors and do all this stuff, but for the most part, I have mostly 1080p monitors around me. I have one monitor that is like a color checker. I look at it, and everything's much more expensive. The rest of them are all $180. And there's lots of them, and I put different things on each one of them. And I think that I don't think that anyway. I think that the iMac, a lot of times, the color and everything else for the kind of person using it, probably overkill.
I remember when the Bondi Blue iMac came out, and then the color iMacs. That this was an era when there was a family computer in the living room.
Yeah,
and as much as anything else reflects a change in the way people compute.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, remember that one of the greatest features of the 2014 iMac, the one with the gooseneck, one of the selling features was that it didn't just look really, really cool. The fact that you can adjust, when the parents are using it, you adjust the screen this way. When the you adjust it downward. Oh, yeah. But now people are moving towards. I think that the iMac and the desktop Mac is the default setting is now the MacBooks. So that's what people get by default.
Yeah, you get a Mac, and you get a Mac, and you, Tommy and Jimmy and Sally and Betty and everybody gets a Mac. And there isn't a living room Mac that we're all using.
What's interesting is that, like, for my kids, they have grown up literally almost from day one on iPads. And so their entire experience is all iPads. But it's interesting that they don't, that's just what they, they have a
computing device. You get a device and you get a device.
But I do think that the iPad is at this point for the next generation. What's interesting is the two ends, under 20 and over 60. The iPad is like the perfect thing, and the in between, some of us get more specific.
Yeah,
with something exciting.
It's both a change in the way people use computers and better for Apple because they're going to sell more units of something, and it really is better for everybody to have your own thing, right? So you don't have to push mom out of the way, so you can use the computer for.
Well, especially that now that so much schooling is done like on individual devices, you can't nudge somebody aside. You can't have three kids and not have three computers at this point.
Pretty much, and I think it is also. We're talking about the size of the display. A lot of people we're talking about like, do you even want a 27-inch display versus a 24? Honestly, I spent the last week mostly using that 24-inch iMac that's behind me. And the only things that I really need more display room are things like when I'm live streaming or doing video editing or something like that. I can get by. And there's also, because these are Retina, you can change the display mode to have more space on the screen, and your eyes have to be a little bit better for that. You got to put your glasses on a little bit closer, but like there are ways to do that. So a lot of people don't really, Apple's statement that 24 is a good size, they're not wrong. I mean, they're selling something, but they're not wrong. It is a pretty good size for most people anyway.
Is it fair to say this is the end of the iMac era? And that's really what we're saying. And that's what we're mourning.
Yeah.
That's not how people compute anymore.
It was
what Apple's letting us down gently.
Yeah,
there was a shining moment where it was the mainstream computer, right? There was actually that weird moment where Apple's whole Mac strategy was falling apart, and they're like, we don't even know how to make a new Mac Pro. We don't even want to make one. Let's just make a better iMac. And they made the iMac Pro. There was a moment where so many power users on the Mac just bought iMacs because there was the Xeon one and the iMac Pro. There were the i7 and i9s in the high-end iMacs at the end. There was great performance, way better than a Mac Mini in the iMac. And the panel was so great because it was one of the first times you could buy a Mac Retina display of size, above a laptop. So we all bought iMacs. I know so many power users who bought iMacs, but that was a little moment in time. And with Apple Silicon and the Studio display and the variety, like the Mac Studio plus the Mac Mini, Apple is now kind of unraveling that. And it comes at a time when, there are the pro users who might have a desktop. A lot of them are now just using a MacBook Pro or something like that.
Even Apple's own.
Yeah, so what's left?
Apple's own pictures of the iMac in use are strained. They're uncomfortable. Here,
not on the kitchen island. No,
that's what the kitchen island was like. That's what you use an iPad for.
Yeah,
iPad.
No one's doing this. They're strained.
Exactly.
So I think, okay, fine, that's fine. It's hard, change is hard, but it's kind of it. This is what Apple's saying essentially when they say no 27-inch. It's over. Kids, get over it. Move on.
And when we say over with Apple, it may be another 5 or 10 years of just there's a 24-inch. If you want one, we're going to give you one.
And they make a lot of money on the iMac still. They do. Yeah. They do, but they see where it's going and they prioritize. Like they would, if they were still making what they were making 10 years ago, they would have 2 of them, right? But it's not like that anymore.
And we don't keep changing the model. You make more because you're amortizing all those costs, and now it's all paid for, and so now you're just printing money with those things, and there's no reason other than changing the chip or changing a couple subsystems. If you don't change it, and I bet you the iMac will stay almost exactly the same for 3 to 5 years. This may be the last model that you'll ever see. Like they'll stop making them after they make this one because they've got other fish to fry.
By the way, this is also what's happening in the PC world. I mean, this is not just Apple. When people buy a PC, they're buying either a gaming thing or a laptop. They're very rarely getting it all in one.
And I think that's the beauty. I know I keep on coming back to it, but with the Mac Minis, they're nice and tiny. They're tiny. They stack. You can put them somewhere. They don't make any noise.
And I, we use Mac Minis, but we're for production. We're in an unusual situation.
Yeah, but even when I talk about when we put them in kits that we send out to people, I have 6 of them right here. But the thing is they're so inexpensive that they're like glue, and they are really these little machines. And again, I use multiple screens. My eyes aren't good enough to start making everything really tiny anymore. And so I have 1080p screens, and instead of trying to make my screen smaller, like my Mac Studio is connected to 4 screens. I just move. I look over here and I look over there, and I'm so used to it now. When I go traveling and I have one screen, I'm like, how does anyone live this way? Like on one screen, but I think that I think but left to my own devices, if I was coming and sitting down at a desk every day, I would use and I wasn't doing graphics, I would absolutely use a Mac Mini because you can define what those are. And again, like for instance, for me, I buy arms. I buy dual arms for my desks. That's all I use, and it's just so nice to grab this monitor and pull it to where I want it and push it back to where I need it. And those are the kind of things that you don't get with all these all-in-ones. I don't even I do have some PCs, and I have little ones, like tiny little ones, like this one here, this little Melee or whatever. But I also have some larger gaming ones, and it's just so hard to deal with. I'm like this huge box that I have to move around and figure out where to put and everything else. And so I really like the compact nature of these, and the amount of power. Again, they were underpowered for a long time. Like the Mac Minis were so underpowered that they were just kind of glue, and now they're like real machines. So I don't know. I had a Mac. I bought the last Mac that came out, and I was very happy with it, but I would never go back.